Alright, we are going to take a look at an example of a triangle congruence proof. In this proof, we are given that SV is congruent to RV, segment TV is congruent to segment WV, segment ST is congruent to RW, and angle T is congruent to angle W. And we are trying to prove that triangle STV is congruent to triangle RWV. So that's a lot of given information. Let's go ahead and mark up the diagram a little bit. So SV is congruent to RV. So here's SV, RV. TV is congruent to WV, TV, WV. And ST is congruent to RW. Finally, T is congruent to W. Okay, so in order to prove that these two triangles are congruent, we need to show that every set of sides is congruent and every set of angles is congruent. Now we already have all three sets of sides congruent, but we only have one set of angles congruent, so we're going to have to figure out the other two. One set that is congruent that we can say right away is this angle and this angle. Take a second to think about why these two angles are congruent. So these two angles are congruent because they're vertical angles, and so we can use the vertical angles theorem to say that angle SVT is congruent to angle WVR. Remember that we're going to have to use that three-letter angle naming system because just saying angle V is not good enough because there are multiple angle V's you could mean there. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and fill in that congruence. It's just to help us figure out what we have to do because we only have one more set of angles to figure out. Inside these triangles we've got two sets of angles that are congruent. So we can just go ahead and say that the third set's congruent too. Oops. Let's stick with black. So angle S is congruent to angle R. And why is that? Well, it was the theorem from this section, and that's the third angles theorem, which says that if two sets of angles in two triangles are congruent, then the third set of angles has to be congruent too. So I'm going to mark that up S R. And now we have that all three sets of sides and all three sets of angles are congruent. That is what we need to say the triangles are congruent. By the definition of congruence used in a new way. So this is for definition of congruent. Now we could say shapes, I'll say triangles. And that's the proof.